The discovery, the silence of deep space, was broken only by the steady hum of the UES Endeavour's engines as Captain Marcus Reed stood before the massive observation deck. Stars stretched endlessly before him, each one a reminder of how vast and mysterious the universe remained. Reed was a weathered man of 45, with greying temples and eyes that had seen too many wonders to count. Behind him, his bridge crew worked quietly at their stations, the soft glow of holographic displays casting blue light across their focused faces. "Captain," called out Lieutenant Sarah Kim from the sensor station, her voice cutting through the peaceful atmosphere. "We're detecting an anomalous reading from the Kepler 442 system. It's unlike anything in our databases." Reed turned from the observation window, his interest immediately piqued. The Endeavour was on a routine survey mission, mapping uncharted systems at the edge of human space. They had been traveling for 3 months, cataloging planets and asteroids. But this was the first time they had encountered something truly unusual. "What kind of anomalous?" Reed asked, walking over to Kim's station. His second-in-command, Commander Alex Torres, joined them, her dark eyes reflecting the sensor readings. "Energy signatures that shouldn't exist," Kim replied, her fingers dancing across the holographic interface. "The readings are coming from what appears to be a small moon orbiting the fourth planet, but the energy output is massive, almost like a miniature star." Torres frowned, studying the data. "Could it be a natural phenomenon? Some kind of exotic matter we haven't discovered yet?" Reed examined the readings carefully. In his 20 years of space exploration, he had learned to trust his instincts, and something about this discovery felt different. Important. Set course for the Kepler 442 system. Full scan as we approach. The journey to the system took 18 hours. During that time, the crew of the Endeavour worked tirelessly to understand what they were approaching. Dr. Jennifer Walsh, the ship's chief scientist, ran continuous analyses on the energy readings. Chief Engineer Roberto Santos checked and rechecked all systems, ensuring they would be ready for whatever they might encounter as they entered the outer edge of the system. The source of the energy signatures became visible on their screens. Reed stood on the bridge, watching as the image resolved into something that made his breath catch in his throat. "My God," whispered Dr. Walsh, her voice filled with awe. Before them, embedded in the surface of a barren moon, was a structure unlike anything humanity had ever seen. It appeared to be made of a crystalline material that seemed to shift and flow like liquid while maintaining a solid form. The structure was enormous, easily the size of several city blocks, and it pulsed with an inner light that cycled through colors that human eyes had never witnessed. "Captain," Torres said, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what they were seeing. "Preliminary scans indicate the structure is artificial. We're looking at alien technology." Reed felt his heart racing. First contact protocols flooded through his mind, but this was different from what they had trained for. This wasn't a living alien species, but evidence of one that had been here long ago. "Any signs of life?" "Negative," Kim reported. "But the energy readings are increasing as we get closer. It's almost as if the structure is responding to our presence." Dr. Walsh looked up from her station, excitement and concern battling in her expression. "Captain, the energy patterns are incredibly complex. This isn't just a structure. It's some kind of machine, and it's active." Reed made his decision. "Commander Torres, contact Earth Command. Send them all our sensor data and request instructions. Dr. Walsh, I want a full analysis of that structure. Everyone else, maintain safe distance, but continue Scans. The response from Earth Command came 6 hours later. Admiral Chun's image appeared on the main screen, her expression serious but determined. Captain Reed, what you've discovered could be the most important find in human history. You are authorized to proceed with caution, but do not make direct contact until we understand more about this technology. Reed nodded, but before he could respond, another transmission came through on a different channel. The image that appeared was of Ambassador Kethrel, a member of the Zephyrian Coalition, humanity's closest alien allies. The Zephyrians were tall, elegant beings with silver skin and large, expressive eyes that seemed to hold ancient wisdom. Captain Reed Kethrel said, his voice carrying an urgency that Reed had never heard before. You must not approach that structure. We have detected your transmissions, and what you have found is dangerous beyond measure. Reed exchanged glances with Torres. The Zephyrians had always been supportive of human exploration, often sharing their own discoveries and warning them away from dangerous areas of space. To hear such fear in Kethrel's voice was deeply unsettling. Ambassador, Reed replied, Can you tell us what we're dealing with? Kethrel's large eyes seemed to grow even larger with worry. We call them architect nodes. They are remnants of a species that existed millions of years ago. Every civilization that has attempted to study them has been changed by the experience. Some gained incredible power but lost their essence, their very souls. Others disappeared entirely. Dr. Walsh leaned forward, her scientific curiosity overriding. Her caution changed how, what kind of power. The architects were beings who existed between dimensions, Kethrel explained. Their technology was designed to elevate species to their level of existence, but the process is dangerous. The Valkyrie tried to use an architect node 3,000 years ago. They became beings of pure energy, but lost all connection to physical reality. They still exist, somewhere between worlds, but they are no longer truly alive. Reed felt a chill run down his spine, but alongside the fear was something else, fascination. Humanity had always been driven by curiosity, by the need to push boundaries and explore the unknown. This was exactly the kind of discovery that could change everything. Ambassador, Reed said carefully, have any species successfully used this technology? Kethrel hesitated before answering. There are legends of one species, the Eternals, who transcended physical existence but maintained their consciousness and identity. But they vanished from our galaxy eons ago. Most believe they ascended to a higher plane of existence. Torres spoke up. Captain, Earth Command is ordering us to maintain distance and wait for a research fleet. Reed looked at his crew, seeing the same mixture of fear and excitement in their faces that he felt in his own heart. Dr. Walsh was practically vibrating with scientific curiosity. Engineer Santos looked worried but determined. Lieutenant Kim watched the sensor readings with intense focus. How long until the research fleet arrives? Reed asked. 3 months, Torres replied. Reed turned back to the screen where Kethrel waited. Ambassador, in your opinion, what makes the difference between species that are destroyed by this technology and those that might transcend? Kethrel considered the question carefully. Adaptability, unity, the ability to change while maintaining. Core identity. The species that failed were either too rigid in their thinking or too willing to abandon what made them who they were. Reed looked out at the crystalline structure pulsing with alien light. Humanity had survived ice ages, plagues, wars, and the journey to the stars. They had adapted to every challenge thrown at them while maintaining their essential humanity. If any species could handle this technology, it would be them. Dr. Walsh, Reed said, making his decision. Prepare a shuttle for close-range scanning. We're going to take a closer look. Torres grabbed his arm. Captain, Earth Command ordered us to wait. Reed met her eyes. Commander, how many times has humanity advanced by waiting for others to tell us it was safe? We didn't reach the stars by playing it safe. Dr. Walsh was already moving toward the shuttle bay. Captain, I volunteer for the survey team. As do I, said Santos, following her. Lieutenant Kim looked up from her station. Count me in, sir. Reed smiled, feeling pride in his crew's courage. Very well. We'll take the shuttle, Magellan, for initial contact. Commander Torres, you have the bridge. The shuttle bay was filled with nervous energy as the team prepared for their mission. Reed suited up in his environmental gear, checking and rechecking every system. Dr. Walsh loaded the shuttle with every scientific instrument they had, while Santos ensured all systems were operating at peak efficiency. As they launched from the Endeavour, Reed felt a familiar mix of excitement and fear that had accompanied every major discovery of his career. The crystalline structure grew larger as they approached, its alien geometry becoming more complex and beautiful with proximity. Energy levels are spiking, Kim reported from the shuttle's sensor station. The structure is definitely responding. To us, Dr. Walsh watched her instruments with fascination. The energy isn't random. There are patterns here, like a language or a code. It's trying to communicate. As they drew closer, the structure's light began to pulse in rhythmic patterns. Reed felt a strange sensation, as if something was touching the edge of his consciousness. Around him, his crewmates reported similar feelings. Captain, Santos said, his voice filled with wonder, look at the structure. It's changing. Indeed, the crystalline formation was reshaping itself, creating what appeared to be a docking port sized perfectly for their shuttle. The invitation was clear and unmistakable. Reed made the final decision that would change everything. Take us in. Let's see what the architects wanted to show us. As the shuttle Magellan entered the alien structure, reality itself seemed to bend around them. The last thing Red remembered of normal space was the sight of the Endeavour growing small in the distance. And then everything changed. They found themselves in a realm where thought became reality, where the boundaries between individual consciousness dissolved, and where the very nature of existence could be reshaped by will alone. Time moved differently here, stretching moments into eternities and compressing years into heartbeats. The architects were long gone, but their gift remained, a chance for worthy species to evolve beyond the limitations of physical existence while retaining their essential nature. For Reed and his crew, it was a test of everything that made them human. They spent what felt like months learning to navigate this new reality, discovering abilities they never knew they possessed. They could share thoughts and memories directly, heal injuries through force of will, and perceive dimensions of reality that had been invisible before. But most importantly, they remained themselves. Their love for discovery, their loyalty to each other, and their determination to use their abilities for good stayed constant even as everything else changed. When they finally emerged from the architect node, only minutes had passed in real time, but they were no longer the same people who had entered. They were still human, but they were something more as well. Asterisk, the transformation, the shuttle Magellan, materialized in normal space with a flash of light that made the sensors of the UES Endeavour scream warnings across every display. Commander Torres stood frozen on the bridge, watching as the small craft that had vanished into the alien structure moments before, reappeared. But something was fundamentally different about it. Commander Lieutenant Jackson called from the communications station, his voice tight with concern. "The Magellan is hailing us, but their transmission method is unlike anything I've seen before. They're not using standard radio frequencies." Torres moved quickly to the communications console. "Put them through." Captain Reed's voice filled the bridge, but there was something new in its tone, a depth and resonance that hadn't been there before. "Endeavour, this is Captain Reed. Request permission to dock." The mission was successful beyond our expectations. "Captain," Torres replied, relief evident in her voice, "you were only gone for 7 minutes. Our sensors showed the structure went completely dark after you entered." There was a pause before Reed responded, and when he did, Torres could swear. She heard multiple voices speaking in perfect harmony, though the words were clearly coming from Reed alone. 7 minutes for you, Commander. We experienced considerably more time than that. We need to speak with the crew immediately. What we've learned changes everything." As the Magellan docked with the Endeavour, Torres couldn't shake the feeling that something momentous had occurred. She assembled the entire crew in the main conference room, a space that could accommodate all 43 members of the Endeavour's personnel. When Reed and his team entered the room, the collective gasp from the assembled crew was audible. They looked like the same people who had left in the shuttle, but their eyes held a depth that seemed to contain entire universes. Dr. Walsh moved with a fluid grace that defied normal human locomotion, and Engineer Santos seemed to radiate a calm energy that made everyone in the room feel more at peace. Most startling of all was Lieutenant Kim, who appeared to be surrounded by a faint shimmer in the air, as if reality itself bent slightly around her presence. Reed stood before his crew, and when he spoke, his voice carried to every corner of the room without any technological amplification. What we discovered in the architect node was a gift left by a species that transcended physical existence millions of years ago. They created these nodes as tests, opportunities for younger species to evolve beyond their current limitations. Dr. Walsh stepped forward, and as she spoke, holographic images appeared in the air around her, illustrating her words without any visible projection equipment. The architects existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. They could perceive past, present, and future as a single moment. Their technology doesn't just enhance our abilities, it expands our consciousness to perceive reality as it truly is. Chief Medical Officer Dr. Lisa Park raised her hand, her expression a mixture of wonder and concern. "Are you still human?" Santos smiled, and the warmth of his expression seemed to fill the entire room with comfort. "We are more human than we've ever been, and something beyond human at the same time. We retain everything we were, but we can now access abilities that were always within us, just dormant." Reed nodded. The architect's test wasn't about abandoning our humanity. It was about embracing our potential while staying true to our core values. We passed because humanity's greatest strength has always been our ability to adapt while maintaining our essential nature. Lieutenant Commander Maria Santos, the ship's tactical officer, looked skeptical. "Captain, what exactly can you do now?" Kim stepped forward, and as she did, her form seemed to flicker between different states of existence. "We can share consciousness directly, communicate without words, heal injuries through focused intent, and perceive dimensions of reality that were invisible before. But more importantly, we can help others reach their potential as well." The room erupted in excited murmurs and concerned whispers. Reed raised his hand, and silence fell immediately, not through any compulsion, but because his presence commanded natural respect. The question now, Red continued, is what we do with this gift. The architects left these nodes throughout the galaxy, waiting for species mature enough to use them properly. We can help other races, including humanity, take this next step in evolution. Torres stood up, her expression serious. Captain, I need to report this to Earth Command. And what about the Zephyrins? Ambassador Kethril was terrified of this technology. Reed's expression grew thoughtful. Contact them both. It's time for complete honesty about what we've become and what we can offer. The response from Earth Command came within hours, and it was not what anyone expected. Admiral Chen appeared on the main screen, flanked by officials Red didn't recognize. Her expression was grave and cautious. Captain Reed, she began, your initial report has caused considerable concern among the leadership. We're ordering the Endeavour to return to Earth immediately for full medical and psychological evaluation of your team. Reed remained calm, but Torres noticed that the lights in the room seemed to pulse gently in rhythm with his breathing. Admiral, we understand your concerns, but we need you to understand that what has happened to us is an opportunity, not a threat. Captain, one of the unknown officials spoke up. Early reports suggest you and your team have been infected by some form of alien consciousness. You may not even be aware of the changes to your thinking patterns. Dr. Walsh stepped forward, and her voice carried a sadness that touched everyone in the room. We are more aware of our thinking patterns than we have ever been. We can see the connections between all things, the patterns that bind the universe together. We haven't been infected, we've been awakened. Before Admiral Chen could respond, another transmission came through. Ambassador Kethril appeared on a split screen, but he was not alone. Behind him stood representatives from 6 different alien species, all looking concerned and wary. Dr. Walsh stepped forward, and her voice carried a sadness that touched everyone in the room. We are more aware of our thinking patterns than we have ever been. We can see the connections between all things, the patterns that bind the universe together. We haven't been infected, we've been awakened. Before Admiral Chen could respond, another transmission came through. Ambassador Kethril appeared on a split screen, but he was not alone. Behind him stood representatives from 6 different alien species, all looking concerned and wary. Captain Reed, Kethril said, his voice heavy with worry, we have been monitoring your transmissions. What you describe matches the transformation experienced by the Valkyrie before they became a threat to all galactic peace. We cannot allow another species to follow that path. Reed felt a surge of disappointment, but also understanding. Fear was a natural response to the unknown, and what they had become was definitely unknown to the rest of the galaxy. Ambassador, Reed said calmly, we are not the Valkyrie. We have not lost our connection to physical reality or our concern for other species. In fact, our enhanced abilities have made us more empathetic, not less. The Zephyrian representative stepped forward, her silver skin gleaming under the bridge lights. Captain, you may believe that, but transformation often brings delusions of benevolence while hiding dangerous instabilities. Santos moved to stand beside Reed, and as he did, every piece of equipment on the Endeavour began functioning at peak efficiency, as if his mere presence was optimizing their performance. If we intended harm, would we not have already acted? We have abilities you cannot imagine, yet we stand here seeking dialogue and understanding. Kim added her voice to the conversation, and as she spoke, her words seemed to carry additional meaning beyond the simple language. We can show you what we've seen, share the perspective we've gained. The architect's gift isn't about power over others, it's about unity and growth. Admiral Chun's expression remains skeptical. Captain, you're ordered to return to Earth. A quarantine fleet is being assembled to escort you. Torres felt her heart sink, but Reed remained calm. Admiral, we will comply with your orders, but we ask that you keep an open mind. We are still the same people who left Earth to explore the unknown. We've just become more than we were. The transmission ended, leaving the crew of the Endeavour in tense silence. Reed looked around at his people, seeing the mixture of fear, excitement, and loyalty in their faces. Captain, Torres said quietly, "What do we do now?" Reed smiled, and his confidence seemed to bolster the spirits of everyone present. "We show them who we really are. We demonstrate that growth and change don't have to mean abandoning our values or threatening others." Over the following days, as the Endeavour made its way back toward human space, Reed and his transformed team worked tirelessly to document their experiences and abilities. They created detailed records of everything they had learned, not just about the architect technology, but about the nature of consciousness itself. Dr. Walsh made a discovery that changed everything. While analyzing the quantum signatures of their transformation, she realized that the enhanced abilities they had gained were not limited to those who had entered the node. The potential existed within all humans, perhaps all sentient species, waiting to be awakened. "Captain," she announced during a staff meeting, "we don't need the architect nodes to help others evolve. We can serve as catalysts ourselves. The transformation can be shared through conscious contact." Reed felt a surge of hope. This changed everything. Instead of being seen as threats who had been altered by alien technology, they could be viewed as pioneers who had unlocked humanity's natural potential. When the quarantine fleet met them at the edge of human space, Reed made an unprecedented decision. Instead of submitting to isolation and study, he opened his mind to Admiral Chen and the other officials. Sharing his experiences directly, the effect was immediate and profound. The fear and suspicion that had driven the quarantine orders melted away as the officials experienced Reed's memories and emotions firsthand. They felt his continued loyalty to humanity, his deep concern for the welfare of others, and his excitement about the possibilities that lay ahead. Within hours, the quarantine fleet had become an escort fleet, and the Endeavour was being welcomed home as heroes rather than threats. But the real test came when the Zephyrian coalition demanded a meeting. Ambassador Kethrel, along with representatives from 12 species, arrived at Luna Station to evaluate the transformed humans. Reed and his team stood before the assembled aliens, knowing that the future of human-alien relations hung in the balance. But instead of defensiveness or aggression, they radiated calm confidence and genuine care for the concerns of their galactic neighbors. "Honored representatives," Red began, "we understand your fears. Change is frightening, especially when it's as dramatic as what we've experienced, but we ask you to judge us not by your preconceptions, but by our actions." What followed was the most remarkable demonstration of human adaptability and wisdom that the galaxy had ever witnessed. Reed and his team didn't use their enhanced abilities to overpower or intimidate. Instead, they used them to heal old wounds between species, to solve problems that had plagued the galactic community for centuries, and to demonstrate that power, coupled with wisdom, could be a force for unprecedented good. The Zephyrians were the first to change their position. Ambassador Kethrel, after experiencing Reed's shared memories, declared that humanity had indeed achieved what the Eternals had. accomplished eons before, transcendence without loss of essential identity. One by one, the other species came to the same conclusion. The transformed humans were not a threat, but an opportunity for the entire galaxy to take the next step in evolution. In the months that followed, Reed and his crew became teachers and guides, helping other species understand and access their own dormant potentials. They established the Institute for Conscious Evolution, where beings from across the galaxy could come to learn and grow. The architect nodes were no longer seen as dangerous relics to be avoided, but as gifts to be approached, with wisdom and proper preparation. Under human guidance, dozens of species successfully underwent their own transformations, each maintaining their unique cultural identities while gaining expanded consciousness and abilities. Reed often stood on the observation deck of the new Institute, looking out at the stars and marveling at how far they had all come. Humanity had not just survived their encounter with the unknown. They had thrived, and in doing so, they had helped the entire galaxy evolve. The universe was vast and full of mysteries still to be explored. But now they had the tools and wisdom to face whatever challenges lay ahead. They had jumped into the unknown and returned as something new, something better, while remaining fundamentally human at their core. As Reed watched ships from dozens of worlds arriving at the Institute, he smiled. The future was bright, and it belonged to all of them. Together, **,